Chinese authorities have been accused of obstructing international journalists as they sought to report on the crackdown.
I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist and you're arresting me. Why are you arresting me?
Time and time again, police made it clear. No pictures, not now, not even here in the city of Chengdu, almost 1,000 miles from Tibet.
I've been arrested by the Chinese police for just trying to cover the protest here.
The police didn't just check our journalist cards, they took them away and made detailed notes on what we'd been reporting. Then they drove off with our documents. China promised press freedom during the Olympics, but this was blatant intimidation.
So I'm pretty sure there are people who miss press freedom and who view the Chinese system as being too rigid. I think a large chunk of the population doesn't realize that it is controlled, and the liberalizations that have taken place and the kind of magazines you can now get that just report on anything, especially when it comes to fashion, entertainment, sports, right? These kind of things which are completely in our control. Give the general reader the impression that Chinese society has become much freer than it used to be. Well, I'd be very careful with what I read in the Western press, which usually has a very strong bias and sees China as sort of this evil empire in the East and has prejudices towards China being socialist also. Even rather professional sites and sources like the BBC, for instance, are very, very China critical and sometimes unfairly so. And you actually see how Chinese react to this unfair or seemingly unfair portrayal of their own country during events like the Beijing Olympics and the torch relay, or certain crises like the Tibet protests or the riots in Xinjiang, where then the Chinese actually go on the street, and popular sentiment rises, and they see the West as being evil and unfair and attacking China. So you could either say, well, either the propaganda in China is working really well and is convincing everybody, or we're just actually not getting the whole picture, and I think that's closer to it. So you're right to say that, yes, the West actually doesn't really know how things work in China, but media censorship and propaganda is actually one of the very few things where I think our critics from the West have a good point.
Well, just to make sure, how restricted is the press freedom?
That depends, as I said earlier, on the area of interest. So anything that's entertainment related, soft issues are normally not restricted. There's a practical matter at hand here too. You can't restrict and control everything. So censorship being sort of a post factum thing, right? Once the paper has been presented, everyone, you have to read everything and every article by everyone, and then decide what gets published. That can just simply not be done in the Chinese case anymore, right? Maybe it could never actually be done fully, but definitely not anymore. Things that are definitely forbidden are, the so-called state secrets. That's sort of the key word. Because it's so vague, we don't really know what constitutes a state secret, and it's a way for the Chinese government to decide to clamp down on things when it feels it's necessary, right, and be rather vague. Cross-strait relations, right, the relation between Taiwan and mainland China is a highly problematic topic. In general, anything that has to do with Chinese territorial integrity and sovereignty, so Tibet, Xinjiang, any minority regions, anything that has to do with potential ethnic unrest, religious movements, actual state secrets of how the army is evolving and so on. Health issues are very quickly national security issues, like AIDS also. AIDS numbers in China are, if they're leaked, it's leaking a state secret, right? So statistics like that suddenly become very explosive. Only some social indicators can be interpreted as state secrets as well. So growth numbers that are not in line with what the government wants, or the amount of actual unemployed and so on, can be problematic.